What's up fam, Farmer Q here, and on today we're going to be prepping, cooking, and canning some collard greens. So I'm excited for this one. We're going to be doing it a little special. We're going to be adding a little flavor, a little soul, a little spirit to it, and we're going to make it work. This is my first time doing this. I've kind of done a little bit of like research as far as watching a few videos here and there, but realistically I just kind of followed the instructions online on the AgriLife extension website as far as the canning goes, and we're going to go with that. I don't have a pressure canner right now, so what I'm going to be doing is the water bath method, and I'm going to be keeping it simple. And then on top of that, we're probably going to eat these greens within the next 2-3 weeks, so we don't have a ton of greens to hold on to for a long time, but we're going to make use of what we got. So without further ado, let's get it. Alright y'all, so we'll be using a few ingredients on the collards today. We're going to keep it simple with the recipe, but we're going to be using the multi-purpose vinegar to wash the greens off, as well as wiping the lids off. We're going to use the liquid smoke to add a little flavor to the turkey that we're going to be cooking on the side to add to the simmer pot. We're going to be adding a little bit of Cavender's all-purpose Greek seasoning to the turkey. We're going to be adding a little bit of pink Himalayan salt to the mixture of the broth that we'll be using. And the broth base we'll be using is free-range chicken broth in the greens. And we'll also be using some of the juices that we get from cooking down the turkey neck pieces along with the stems, because we're going to cook them in a cast iron together. Like I said, this is my first time doing this, and I'm going to try to add a little bit of my own flavor to it, and we'll see how it works out. So let's go ahead and get it. Alright fam, so the first thing we're going to do is get these greens nice and rinsed off. We got them in the refrigerator right now, and we got to get a rough rinse going on first. That means we're going to just get some water over them. Then we're going to soak them in a mixture of water, vinegar, as well as a little bit of salt. We're going to give them a good bath. Once we give them a good bath, we're then going to put them into the strainer right here. We're going to rinse as much of the residual water off as we can, and then we're going to actually get to cutting them. So let's go ahead and get started with that whole rinsing process, why don't we? I'll be taking our water bath canner that we'll be using, and I will put all the greens that's in the refrigerator inside here and bring them to the sink. So we're just using the tools we got so we can save some trips. All right, y'all, we went ahead and got our greens loaded up. So now what we're gonna do is start a little bit of water in them right here, and then we're gonna do a little rough rinse individually on the greens here. After we do that, we'll load them up into the strainer, pile style. With this rinse right here, we're just trying to get some water over them, really make sure that the dirt particulates are off of them. But we're gonna do that vinegar rinse to make sure that we get everything off and out of them. Just rinsing anything that could be on them off of them, roughly. They're pretty clean though, to be fresh from outside. We got a lot of collards. All right fam, so we got the rough rinse done on the collards. Now what we're gonna do is get this water ran over here on this side, and we're gonna add a little bit of salt to it, and we're gonna add a little bit of vinegar to it. Realistically, you can add for every gallon of water a cup of vinegar, but I'm not gonna be going that extreme. Like I said, we're gonna be eating these relatively quickly. We're gonna be getting a good rinse on them, and we're gonna make sure that they're clean. But like you can see, there's no dirt really on them. They're relatively clean for the most part. So we're gonna be using the vinegar and the salt as just a next step cleaner to really get this thing going some more. So let's get it. This is cold water that we have running in the sink right now. I'm gonna let it get partial full, maybe mostly full, and then we're gonna add some salt and some vinegar to the overall mixture. All right fam, so now that we got our water nice and ran, we don't really need a ton of water because when we put these greens inside of this water, it's gonna rise, of course. So now we'll go ahead and add an honest cup of water to this vinegar. We got a gallon, so we got a half cup right here. We'll add 2 of these bad boys to it. Then we're gonna add some of our pink Himalayan salt to the mixture so we can really get a good cleaning going. So we got our jug here, we got our cup here. Go 1 and 2. We'll add a little bit more more just for safe measure because it's a little bit more than a gallon. Just like that. We're gonna go ahead and add our salt to the mixture as well. Sprinkle some salt up in that bad boy. We're gonna take a spoon real quick and give this a little mix. All right, we got a nice little mixture on our salt, vinegar, water mix. And now we're gonna start getting our greens over to get them nice and clean. So we're gonna add them to the mixture here. You can just throw them in there like that. And as it gets full, we're going to start the rinsing process. But what I want to say is, make sure that when you're about to get to rinsing them and everything, that you're gentle with this, because this is the part where you can really start to do some damage to the leaves. Not like it really matters that much. We're gonna get all these collard greens into this mixture here. We got a nice little stack load here that we're gonna throw into the sink from the strainer. Taking our time because, like I said, I wanna keep my leaves intact. We just gotta make sure that it can completely submerge the greens and they're able to get nice and clean. All right, so now that we have our collards over here in the soaking / bathing side of the sink, we're gonna go ahead and give them a small push here. Start massaging them down into the water here. Push them down into the water just like that. And then since we got so much of them, what I'll do, I'll move this over. What I'll do is I'll kind of come to the top here, lift it out of the water, give it a nice little flip here. Just like that. Just keep the rinse going. This is really gonna help make sure that we draw out anything that is inside the stems or anything like that, or we're also gonna make sure that we really get these leaves clean. Clean. The vinegar is really gonna help neutralize any bad stuff inside the mixture, and it's gonna also have a pulling effect on the actual plants themselves. See, when you put the salt in there with the vinegar, you have a double pulling effect because the vinegar naturally wants to pull stuff out of the plant, and the salt also wants to pull water out of the plant. So you get this double capillary effect of cleaning that really makes sure that your greens can get as clean as you want them to be. As y'all can see, I'm just cleaning the greens off. Yep. Do another flip real quick. Just like this. Push them down again, submerge them again. It's down in there, just like that. One more time. All right, so we got a really good rinse on these greens here. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna come up underneath it and pull this drain plug. I'm gonna just kind of tilt it though, because I don't want any of the greens to end up down the sink if we do end up with a situation like that. So we're just gonna let them drain. All right, now that we're drained, we're gonna take our rinsing piece here on the sink and we're gonna turn it on real soft. Turn the sink on real soft. Then with the sink on soft, we're gonna take our spray because the spray's not as intense now with the sink on softer. We're gonna take our spray here. We're gonna give these collards in here a nice little rinse because we want to get as much of that vinegar residue off as we can. It's not really what we want on it right now. So we're just giving them a good rough rinse before we throw them back into our strainer and we actually strain the greens before we cut them up. Because yes, that is the next step. We're going to cut the greens up. We're gonna get the stems out of them and get our leafy material separated. So I'm just doing this until the vinegar smell starts to dissipate. Then we'll throw them in the strainer and we'll get the rest of the water off. Now what I'm starting to experience is we're going from the vinegar smell to that natural collard smell that we look for. So we're gonna go ahead and stop with the rinse. We're gonna throw these back into the strainer here. On this side, we're gonna move this over. Throw these back in the strainer right here. Just like that. You don't have to be perfect. Because what I'm gonna be doing is basically just shaking the water off anyway. We got a huge pile here. We're trying to make the most out of what we got. So now that we got them piled up, I'm gonna take this and I'm going to just kind of give it a shake. And I'm just trying to get any residual water off of it. But realistically, we don't need to get too much off of them because we rinsed them at the start. We did our vinegar rinse, then we rinsed the vinegar off. Now I'm just air drying them a little bit before I cut the stems out and get the greens cut down to a smaller size. All right, fam, we're gonna go ahead and get to the next step here, which is de-stemming these greens. We're gonna do it quick. We're gonna make it nice and easy. It's a very easy thing to do. And as we do it, we're gonna throw these greens over to the right here in the sink. We're gonna throw the stems off right here to the left. And we're gonna make sure that we keep all of our stems because we're gonna cook those stems into the greens as well. Make them nice and soft because they're very nutritious. Actually, one of the most nutritious parts of the greens. So let's get it. So what I like to do when I'm de-stemming these greens, I just come the top of this part here, come here and cut that down, then cut here a little bit, and come here and cut this down. And then when you do that, you can just pull it off just like that. And here is your stem. Obviously I ripped the leaf a little bit, but that's okay because we're gonna be cutting it up anyway. So we just throw these leaves over here to the side, throw these stems over here to this side. We're gonna keep it going. All right, fam, we got all our greens separated from the stems, but check out the stack of greens that we have here. I want y'all to see this before I move on. Goodness gracious. Look at that, y'all. Oh my gosh. That's a lot of greens. We'll see what this reduces to, but that's beautiful, y'all. I love how that looks. You don't get a view like this too often, so we're just soaking it in. So instead of rolling these up, I'm gonna try a little something different. I'm going to go ahead and just cut them exactly like they are. I'm gonna give them a good press right here, and then I'm going to literally cut them into a grid pattern. So we'll just literally, because our knife's super sharp, I'm like, why not just give this a shot? Let's do it just like this. And we'll bring it back together, and we'll make sure that our cuts are staying honest and everything, but the cuts are very easy because we cut the stems out. And now we're just trying to get these things separated so that we can actually get them simmering in the pot. But first thing we're gonna do is get them separated so we can actually get the turkey started with the stems, because once that's done simmering, then we can actually get the whole thing rolling. Make Make sure you're really careful with the knife, y'all. So now what I'm gonna do is flip it around like this. And then we're gonna come over here and just start on the edge here, just like this. We're gonna go all the way down. Just doing a grid style cut. Look like cash money, boy. Once we get them cut like this, we can just put them in the bowl. It's going pretty good. I'd say so myself. There we go. Got a few more cuts to go. So check that out, y'all. No scissors required. We got our greens nice and cut up. We're gonna go ahead and see how many we can fit in this bowl right here. Goodness gracious, y'all, look at this. All right, we got one bowl full, so we're gonna get another bowl. All right, y'all. We got two big old bowls of collard greens. We got one big old bowl and one partially full bowl, but this is gonna be enough to make quite a bit. I'm not sure, it might actually fill just a few cans actually, but we'll see what it fills up. We're gonna get them all cooked down and everything, but before we do that, we're gonna chop up the stems and then get the turkey necks chopped up, seasoned up. We're gonna add it to the cast iron and get it rolling. So y'all, these stems are where you're gonna get a lot of your calcium from when you eat your greens. So make sure that you cook these down and add them to your greens, or cook them and make them to a separate dish or something, but you're gonna get a lot of your nutritional value from these stems right here. So let's go ahead and get these cut up. I like to cut my stems nice and skinny. It really helps them render down faster, cook down easier. Dice them into the smallest pieces you can. It might take a little bit longer, yeah, but the longer you spend preparing your food, the better it's going to be when it comes time to eat it. So I'm going to take these bigger stem pieces right here and I'm going to add them to the worm feed container. I really don't need to have every piece of the stem. I just want to have the majority of the pieces, and we got that right here. So we're going to add this to the worm farm container. All right, so now we're going to add these stems to a separate bowl in preparation to get them into the cast iron later. All right, we got our stems separated. It's time to get the turkey necks added to the situation. We're going to go ahead and get our turkey neck pieces. We're going to get them cut up. We're going to add them to the stems. We're going to season it down, and we're going to cook it all together in the cast iron pot before we get the greens simmering. So let's get it. All right, so here we have our turkey necks. We're just gonna cut the meat off of the bones, get them going and everything. So right here is what we have left as far as the meat that will go inside the stems of the greens. We're not trying to make it a meat dominated dish. We're just trying to add a little bit of flavor and pizzazz to the whole mixture. So we're gonna go ahead and grab our stems here and we're gonna add our meat to the stems. Just like this. So what we're gonna do now that that cutting board's out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and add our dry seasonings and then add our wet seasonings. As far as our dry seasonings, we just have a little bit of salt and Cavender's all-purpose Greek seasoning. And then just with the wet seasonings, we have a little bit of chicken broth as well as a little Stockyard liquid smoke. So we're gonna go ahead and get that added. just kind of eye what I'm adding right now because you want to mix it to your liking. I'm just gonna add a little bit of salt to it. I'm gonna add a little bit of Cavenders to the mixture. Just like that. A little bit more Cavenders than salt. We're gonna give it the old mix up. Now we have it all added to the mixture. We're gonna add a little bit of free range chicken broth. We're gonna add a little bit of liquid smoke. We'll probably add between both of them like half a cup because it's gonna have a lot of liquid in the greens. It's gonna have a lot of liquid in the stems already, so go ahead and do about that much of that. The liquid smoke, we're gonna add just like that. We're just trying to add some flavor because the juices of what's inside of what we're cooking are gonna come out and mix with the flavors of what we just added. And give it a little mix again. All right, so we have our green stems and we have our turkey neck slices mixed all up. We're gonna go ahead and get these simmering on the cast iron pot over here, on the cast iron pan over here. We're gonna go ahead and get our broth for the greens bubbling up and good to go. So let's get it. So now that we're over here to the stove, what I'm gonna do is turn the eye on about medium heat. You know, not low, not high, right in between. And like I said, while we're cooking it down, we're gonna go ahead and get our broth inside of here. We're gonna add the rest of the broth that's inside that carton because we're gonna have plenty of juices to get us through the mix of what we're cooking. So we're just gonna add a little bit of support. We got this pan heating up a little bit, the cast iron. We're gonna go ahead and throw this pan over here on 1 notch above medium heat, just so we can get a good simmer going on the broth. Add that to the mix right there. Let that start to get nice and warm. What I'm gonna do here is throw a little bit of butter in the cast iron. Just get some lubrication going, some simmer action. I like to kind of give it a move around, give it a spread around. Get nice and coated on the pan. It's that Irish butter. We got a nice lubrication on that cast iron. We're gonna go ahead and add our stems and our turkey necks to the cast iron. Get that simmering. Get the rest of this out of here. We're gonna let that simmer and cook down till we get all the way cooked down on the meat. I'm gonna turn it up just a little bit above medium, just a little bit. All right, now we got that mixed in real well. Now what we're gonna do is add the top back to that cast iron and let that really just simmer inside there like that. And we're gonna let that cook for a while. We're gonna let our broth over here for the greens start to get to a nice little boil. And right as our stems and our turkey necks get cooked down all the way, and as we're at a decent little boil over here on our ceramic pot, we're gonna add the greens and we're gonna add the stems and turkey necks to the pot. What that's gonna do, it's gonna allow the stems to render down the rest of the way because the meat's gonna be cooked before the stems are already rendered all the way down. And anything that's not completely cooked down, we're gonna add it to the simmer pot with the greens to render down the rest of the way, and we're gonna get it all mixed in together. So that's how it's gonna be. We'll get back when we are ready for the next step of the process. All right, fam, here we go. We're getting to the point now to where the turkey is cooked enough and the green stems are starting to get softer and more pliable. So let's check on the simmering pot of broth and see where we're at with it. Oh yeah, we got a nice simmer on our broth over here. So we're gonna put the simmer pot on low here, keep some heat on it, but we're gonna actually make it go a little bit lower. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna go ahead and add our greens to the broth pot over here. because our stems are halfway cooked and I've allowed them to quote unquote catch up to the leaves, because the leaves are going to cook a lot faster. The leaves are going to cook for about 25-30 minutes with the stems and the turkey neck inside of it. After we're all cooked up and cooked down and all that good stuff, we're going to start our canning process. I know our squares are kind of big, but they're going to reduce as they cook, so no worries. Oh, we got a mess of greens, y'all. We got a mess of greens. It's okay, they'll all fit. I'll make sure of it. We got one more part of a bowl to add. And what I'm gonna do, since we got so many greens in this pot, we're gonna move this up to the top eye here, turn this off. We're gonna go ahead and add a little bit of salt to the top of these greens. Just a little bit, just a little sprinkle there. We're gonna go ahead and, we washed our hands off, so we're gonna go ahead and come in here a little bit and bring that around town. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and add the cast iron contents to the pot with the greens in it. I'm gonna go ahead and just scoop this on out of here. Just like that. We're gonna add it right to the top. We're gonna keep adding our turkey necks and our green stems to the top of the greens here. We got our green stems added to the top. And you might think, hey, let's stir this into the mixture, but we're gonna actually add the top to this. And we're gonna let these simmer for a little bit. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to start the timer for 30 minutes. Start the timer for 30 minutes. And when we actually get to the 20-minute mark, we're gonna actually come back and give this a nice little stir, because I want it to wilt down a little bit before I come back and stir it. So, and I'm not gonna cook these greens for as long as I normally would. I just want them to wilt down, because when we can them in the water bath canning process, they're gonna cook a little bit more. So we gotta keep that in mind. All right, fam, we got our cook going a little bit. We rendered down a little bit. So now what we're gonna do is actually stir this up, because now we got the greens to a point where we can actually move them around a little bit. They lost a little bit of that rigidity that we're used to them having. And we can also incorporate these turkey pieces into the overall mixture. So now that we got it all mixed into the mixture, we're gonna cover it back up and let it cook the rest of the time we got timed in. After we do that, we're gonna go ahead and start the canning process. Alright, so the greens are right where I like them to be when they're in the cooking process as far as a canning standpoint. Because if I was actually cooking these to serve up, I would let them cook a little bit more, but they're right at that point to where they're not quite done yet, but they need a little bit more. So we're gonna get this process of actually taking them and transition into the canning process. But we gotta actually get set up, so let's go ahead and get to that real quick before we take it off. But we'll just let it kind of sit in its own juices a little bit and just chill here for a minute while we get the canning station all ready and set up. So let's do that. So we're gonna take these jars right here and we're gonna open them all up just like this. We got them all out. We also have taken our water and put it inside of our water bathing station, but first we're going to use our water bathing station to actually sterilize these jars real quick. So we're going to throw that in there for a good 20 minutes to let these actually sterilize. So we're going to do that and we're going to show you how we're going to do that. So one second. Now that we got our boil going, we're going to start our timer for 10 minutes, because I found out if I just run this boil for 10 minutes, I'll be good to go for my sterilization. So there we go. Alright y'all, we've been boiling for 10 minutes and this is what we look like. So we're gonna take our cans over with our can handler over to the area and then we'll get that rolling. Alright, so now that we're all set up over here in our station, we got our pot of greens right here. We got all of our jars. We have our funnel. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get a spoon to actually funnel all of our greens into our cans, and we're gonna stop it just an inch short of the top. So we're gonna fill these up. We might be feeling them a little shy, but hey, it's our first time we get into it, so let's keep it going. A little short in that jar, but it's okay. So as you can see, we got 7 jars to work with there. So now we got our canned greens, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna come on with these tops. We're gonna do it hand tight, not really even hand tight, just like to where we just hit that fresh tightness on it, because we're not trying to slam it tight on top, because the lids themselves are gonna be what's gonna seal to the top. So let's go ahead and get these on. Now is fill our water bath canner up with water. We're gonna basically make sure that the water level is above the jars, and then we're gonna get it to a boil and start our timer for 20 minutes. Once we do that, we'll be done with the canning process, but we'll actually have a few more things to do, so just stick around and we'll get to that. So now that we're at the next step of our canning process, we're gonna go ahead and add our jars here. Before it comes to a boil, it's already really hot. It's really warm water. We're gonna let it come to a boil, then we're gonna start our timer for 20 minutes, and then we'll let them sit in the canner for an additional 10 minutes before we take them out and put them in a nice dark cool spot to just cool down and get right. So let's go ahead and get these jars in here. We had to get a little ghetto with it, but that's okay. What we're gonna do is just use this top here from our ceramic pot that's pretty heavy to keep our cans in place. We already have our little compartment on the bottom to actually keep the cans from being in direct contact with the heat source. So we're just gonna try to make this work just like we got it. So I'll throw the top on and we'll start the timer for 20 minutes when we get on a boil, and then we'll be done with it. All right, y'all, so we got the water to a boil now. It's not really much of a boil, but this thing is scalding hot, and we got some really big bubbles coming from the bottom. So we're gonna go ahead and start our timer for 20 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll let it sit for 10 minutes, and then we'll pull it on out so we can see what we're looking at. All right, y'all, the timer hit 20 minutes, so we're gonna go ahead and turn it off. All right, so we've let our jars sit for about 15 minutes now inside the pot that we did our water bath canning in. This is where we are, so let's check it out. All right, so we're still steaming and everything, but at this point we can take everything off, I guess. And you can see why I put the top on there. Because the cans are floating. So this is why you want to use a canning rack that holds it down in place. We're making it do what we can this time, so we're gonna go ahead and get these out of here. And we're gonna put them on the towel. So even though some of them are floating in between, we had them submerged when we actually had them boiling. So we're gonna come over here to the other area and show you the jars. All right, y'all, so here we are. These jars are really hot and everything, but I'm used to touching hot stuff, whatever. Just wanted to show y'all real quick. Ooh, hot potato, but the top is popped. I don't know if I can really show y'all really well, but oh, you heard one in the background pop. But as you can see, they're tight. Ooh, that's warm, but we're nice and sealed. So now all we gotta do is just let this cool and everything, and we're good to go. So I guess that's it, but we'll go ahead and close it on out. All right, fam, we got the canning all done and everything. And now all I'm gonna do is wipe the rings of the actual jars with vinegar. So let's go ahead and pop these off. And ideally, if our canning went successfully, our lids should stay in place. And do the old brush test, and they're good. So now we're just gonna get a good wipe down on all these. All right, we have all our rings removed, so now we're just gonna spray our vinegar solution on the towel here and give the rings a quick wipe to get any residue that might have collected off of the edges of the rings. Go tight, we'll just go enough to where we spin it in place, because our seal really comes from the lids being in place where they are. And we're good. All right, y'all, Farmer Q here. We had a long day getting the cooking and canning done, mostly the canning, because we had to wait for everything to cool down before we actually wiped the rings down and got the lids off and everything like that. But hey, we got it done. I'm happy with the results of what we have. So this is what we're dealing with right here. Beautiful to me. I think it's nice. I think we're looking real nice. We always got room to improve, but hey, I'm excited for what we got done this time. Just a quick look we got here. But yeah, we got 7 jars in total. But y'all know what that means. That's Farmer Q out.